Hi, Chris. Thank you so much for joining me in this podcast episode. Really appreciate it. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, the pleasure is mine. I'm super excited to learn more about you and your newest book called The Entrepreneur's Big Book. And we're gonna get deep into it, like what's in the book and why did you write it. So before you get into that, like I'd love to know more about yourself. Like how did your entrepreneurial journey started?
And it's funny, that's all in the book. But it started at a young age, and I was surrounded by entrepreneurs growing up. So it was really a lifestyle that I didn't know any other. And I love the energy that comes from entrepreneurs.
Mhm.
I've certainly had jobs in my life, but for the most part, I mean this in a positive sense. I've been unemployable because I always come up with ideas and I get excited by them, and I want to run with them, and I don't want to stop to ask permission. And
Yeah.
I feel that a lot of entrepreneurs have that we don't want to ask permission to go with an idea or something. So that's part of how my journey began. And along the way, I was a professional inventor for 15 years. I've had five or six businesses, depending on how you count. And now I coach small business owners for the last 12 years.
Yeah, that's great. And a lot of experiences you had over the years for like working with the businesses, building your own businesses. So when did you actually start writing about your newest book, The Entrepreneur's Big Book?
Well, this is the second book I'm releasing in 2 years. So we did a workbook last year. So we offer sales training
Mm.
twice a month. And so I had speaking notes that we converted into a book. We were getting involved with a college and they needed a book that we could work from in the college. So
Yeah.
I created that book. And then I learned how to write a book. And I had an idea for a book. And it had to do with, so I coach entrepreneurs, right? And we take them from startup until they sell and everywhere in between.
Yeah.
And what I see happening, or what I would like to happen, both do, is the successful owners, when they're near the end of their run with their businesses, I like when they reach out and help the up and coming
Mm.
business owner. And in our meetings that we have monthly, and I can go into that in depth if you want, what we really are learning is we're learning from others' mistakes. So we don't have to make them. So
Yeah.
we've made the mistakes for the new entrepreneur. So I know a thing or two in different fields, and there's a recovery aspect of 12-step programs. And the 12th step in a 12-step program is giving back. So
Right.
that's where the idea began, was the successful entrepreneur giving back to the up and coming entrepreneur. And that's where the idea started. And then I
Mm.
started researching the different books and hearing the different stories. And I realized that it's very similar. That, not that entrepreneurship is a negative, not that it's a disease, not that there's anything wrong with it, but it can be a bit of an addiction also. It
Yeah.
can consume our lives. And the more I started getting into this and writing it, the more it occurred to me we were really onto something. And so there's a little history for you.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. So I saw the book cover and everything. There's like 12 steps you cover on this book. So what are those
Yes.
12 steps you covered?
Well, in the first step, we admit that we're powerless over our entrepreneurship,
Hmm.
right? And that it can make our lives unmanageable.
Yeah.
And I think anybody who's owned a business, it's almost like having another child. It
Yeah.
takes as much time, energy, and effort, right? Now, all of a sudden, you have a next child kind of thing. But, there's a picture I love. My dad has it hanging on his wall where it's Christmas Eve and it shows a parking lot full of snow and there's a Christmas wreath on the building and all the lights in the building are off except except the top corner
Yeah.
office, and that's the owner, and that's entrepreneurism. That's entrepreneurship. It doesn't matter what day or time it is. If we're on a roll, we're going to keep working, and it
Mm.
can make our lives unmanageable. Our spouses may not like it. People who don't understand may not like it, and it can take over our lives. So that was the first step.
Yeah.
In the second step, we come to believe that there's a power greater than ourselves, and it can be meeting with other business owners in monthly meetings. And so I'm not just suggesting our on the bus meetings, but there's other entrepreneurial groups. And that's what I'm suggesting is
Right.
join a group. Entrepreneurs don't do well with coaches. I know everybody wants to be a coach to entrepreneurs, but generally they're experts. They've read about this stuff. They haven't lived it. Entrepreneurs don't want their fingers wagged at them, saying, don't do this.
Mm.
But they do like to know or where the guardrails are and what mistakes others have made and where they can go and say, I don't know what to do here. What do you do with an employee who's calling out for the fourth time with COVID? How do you handle that? What am I allowed to do?
Right.
So those are the kinds of things in the second step. So I could go through all 12, but buy the book. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. Like giving a curious, like what's in the book. So that'll be great. So yeah, let's talk about your first step, like being a powerless, and also like in second one, you said power greater than ourselves, like doing like a networking, meeting other business owners. Like you networked so many business owners yourself over the last 2 3 decades in your business career. So a lot of people right now, like after the COVID hit, like networking events and everything shut down, and like not many network events exist anymore. Especially in the UK, I don't know about the US right now. Especially in the UK, like a lot of business events is not happening because of the COVID, and the organizers are not doing it anymore. Like they do like a virtual one, like over the Zoom, and that's not like how human relationship is built up, like over the phone, over the Zoom. It's not like effective as how it used to be. What's your thoughts on that?
So I can agree and disagree at the same time. So pre-COVID, I ran 3 different groups,
Mm.
right? So most Tuesdays and Thursdays, I was running groups of business owners. And when COVID hit, I didn't think it was going to be a real thing. I remember standing at a podium
Yeah,
on March 13th, it was 2020. I think it was a Thursday, in front of 100 people, saying, don't worry, we'll be here next week. Everything will be fine. I'll shake your hand.
yeah.
And it wasn't. Within 4 days, I shut down my office and we went into this, quarantine
Mm.
period of time for a while. And but what we did right away was I took those groups and made them virtual.
Right.
And for me, in my opinion, it's better. I love virtual
So
to
you
the
think
point.
virtual is better than like a human touch, right? Like doing actual physical events.
Last week, I stayed in my home for 6 days without leaving. And I was not bored. I was not isolating. I was online 12 hours a day. And a lot of it are virtual networking groups.
Yeah.
And our trade shows, we used to have live trade shows. In 2014, we started offering trade shows, or what some people might call expos or conventions. We call them trade shows.
Mm.
And we taught people how to get more out of trade shows. We were doing 2 a year, every December and June. And come to 2020, we had to cancel our June show, but I wasn't going to cancel December. And we figured out how to do these things virtually.
Right.
And we started on Zoom by stacking breakout rooms, 40 deep. I didn't, somebody else gave me the idea and showed me how to do it. I had the idea, I just didn't know how to, but I got the right people around me. But where that evolved to is now we're in the metaverse. And
Mm-hmm.
now we have virtual trade shows where you become an avatar with a video on your head kind of thing. And you walk around from booth to booth and you trade information and commerce gets done.
Yeah.
And our footprint is huge. We have people from India, Sri Lanka, Canada, South Carolina, everywhere coming to this platform. And it doesn't matter where you are anymore. It's really more about time zones than
Yeah.
anything else. So I'm all in on this virtual thing.
Yeah, I like the fact like I've been working last 6 7 years, like working from home, online virtual business. I'm running my team as well, like getting the clients and everything through like online. Even though meeting and events, like doing podcasting, I did more than 180 episodes with the guest. So I spoke to about 8 900 people last 1 year, like before
Wow.
pre-qualifying them, like being my guest on the show. So all happened like over the calls. If I have to go and see, visit it, like every single individual, doing like a face-to-face meeting wouldn't be possible doing that much amount. Like I have to fly to US to meet you, or you have to come to UK to like doing the show, and it will be like a time efficient for both of us. Like we have to run our businesses, we have to give some time on the family. So yeah, it's made it so much easier. Like the technology made it so much easier to connect from different parts of the world and made it smaller, like it's on top of the phone, like you just tap on it and you just connect with anyone. So doing a business for 20 years back, like when you started or like whenever you started to compare to right now, what kind of differences you seeing and like a good point or bad point?
The challenges have changed. So the challenge now that everybody seems to be having is hiring. That
Right.
wasn't the case 20 years ago.
Hmm.
So 20 years ago, it might be real estate, finding the right retail spot, or it could be the next technology. But now, regardless of the industry, it appears to be hiring is the real challenge.
Yeah.
And that's consistent regardless of the industry.
Yeah, the industry is changes. Like a lot of industries, like going out of businesses over the years, like a radio industry, like a disappearing right now because of the online internet podcasting come through. Like a lot of people are focused on that compared to how the radio station used to be, when people driving the car. Because I'm not that old, I'm on my late 20s, but I seen that, like I'm from originally from Bangladesh, but we used to listen to audio radios oftentimes. But even though in Bangladesh they're using like a podcast, they listening to MP3s and like YouTube videos rather than actually going for like a radio itself, finding out the station. So yeah, it made it like an educational way is like so much better. Like a YouTube comes along and giving like everything we can search on and we can find it easier. If you want to learn a new skills, you can just go online and grab a course. Or like you created a course yourself, like a sales training you do. Like it's so much easier to compare to if someone have to like download it or buy the CD and then they have to put it on a CD. And right now they can on the go and they can see the sales training on the phone, and it's made it so much easier to like doing business. So over the years, yeah.
Where it gets a little tricky is protecting your intellectual property. That's the only
Mm,
downside to all of this, is that things get passed around pretty easily,
that's
but
true.
it is what it is. That people are learning and they're figuring out how to learn.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, like that's like a main point. Like I've seen like so many successful like course creator, their course been bought by someone for $2,000, $3,000, and then after that, someone making a copy out of it and selling it for $500, and that's like a down point. And I see that oftentimes for like a coaches and consultant that's been happening. So like over the years, like what them great lesson you have learned so far? Like if you can give like one or two lessons you learned, that would be like a helpful for our audience.
So for small business owners, start up to 20 million in revenue, that's my sweet spot.
Mm,
I would say that the owner's main function should be always be interviewing.
right.
Regardless if you think your team is in place, you need bench strength. It makes everyone better if the owner can focus, just make it a KPI, make it a behavioral goal to always be interviewing.
Right.
Then you won't get caught without people. And if somebody needs to call out all of a sudden, you can say, no problem. We've got somebody who wants that time slot anyway.
Mm,
Yeah, enjoy your day, and watch, they won't call out again. So
yeah.
that I think is um, a weakness of some business owners, that they think their team's in place and they're good to go and they don't have the bench strength.
Yeah.
The other is that I find that most owners, when they come to me, don't have a vision. They don't know where they want to go,
Mm,
right? So they've gone where the clients have brought them. And what I like to do is start with a little meditation, and I take them out to their exit point, and we work backwards to the current day, establishing behavioral goals along the way. And then we track them, and we use our monthly bus meetings to hold them accountable to sticking with them. So
yeah.
it's part of a formula.
Yeah.
But if they're rudderless, if they don't know where they want to go, it's hard to get them there.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah, thanks for your advice. That's really helpful. So we're coming to the end of this podcast, Chris. It's been a great pleasure having you in the show and learn a few things from you as well. So those is listening, if you want to buy your book or like learn more about yourself, where is the best place to find you?
Amazon next Friday, the 25th, is when the new book will come out. It's the Entrepreneur's Big Book, where the workbook is also on Amazon Kindle and Audible. And please, if you ever want to check out our virtual trade shows, come to onthebus.biz. There's no charge to attend. So
Okay.
please come.
Yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
great. Thanks for your sharing. So I wish you best of luck with your business and career and your new book also. So yeah, you have a wonderful day ahead and thanks for coming.
Thank you very much.
All right, that's a wrap, guys. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. So those who are interested in buying the book, go to Amazon and grab your copy. And if anyone is interested to learn more about Chris, go visit his website as well. So until then, I'll talk to you in the next episode. Take care.